which are pending. I submit, Chair.
Thank you. FCP Oyula.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Chair, let me start by congratulating Mr. Rono for having been nominated to this position. Mr. Rono, from your explanation, it appears you have a lot of information with you regarding these Pokamla issues. Now, I just have one or two questions. Our country, Kenya, has been listed twice, grey listed twice. First in 2011 and second in 2024. 2024 is not far off. Why was Kenya grey listed in 2024? Secondly, Mr. Rono, what is the current status of the country's implementation of its ICRG action plan? And what, in your view, is hampering the country's delisting efforts? Thank you.
Over to you, Naftali.
Thank you, Honorable Oyula. And through the chair, it's true the country has been grey listed twice, first in 2010 and 2024. Just to give a context, in 2010, the country was grey listed mainly because of technical compliance. The FATF assessment regime or architecture assesses the country mainly on two areas, on technical compliance and the effectiveness. So in 2010, it was mainly on technical compliance, putting in place the necessary laws and the institutional framework. At that time, we had the legislation, but we had not operationalized it. So the bulk of the areas, of the issues, which took us to grey listing in 2010 were on technical areas. In 2024, when we went through the mutual evaluation exercise, which again is a requirement by the FATF standards that all countries which have signed up or who are members of FATF, either directly or indirectly, subject themselves or submit themselves to peer review. They are peer reviewed by the neighboring countries or other countries through the regional FATF regional bodies like ESAMLAC. So when we went through that process, a number of deficiencies were identified. There were few deficiencies touching on technical compliance, mainly on having a legal framework to regulate virtual asset service providers, which has been done by this House. There were other technical compliance areas, like having mechanisms to give effect to implementation of the targeted financial sanctions. So most of those areas have been addressed. And then, of course, the other area which has not been addressed was on having a law to govern beneficial ownership information, especially touching on trusts. The bulk of the issues, or the main reason which took us to ICRG process or grey listing, is on the effectiveness, basically demonstrating how well the institutions, how well the laws that we have in place are delivering, how well they are meeting the expected outcomes. In terms of prosecutions, for instance, how well are we doing? How many prosecutions have we conducted? How many investigations have we conducted? How many asset recoveries have we conducted? That is an effectiveness criteria. The other element was the appreciation of risks themselves. The mutual evaluation group established that the understanding of risks in the various sectors was not even. The financial sector appeared to understand the risks in that space pretty well, whereas the designated non-financial business and profession sector did not understand the risks. And as a consequence, there was no correlation between the mitigation measures that the country had adopted and the risk profile of the country. The other area was on what they call risk-based supervision. Again, the financial institutions demonstrated a fairly good understanding or application of risk-based supervision. The designated non-financial sector, unfortunately, was low, and it's not even. There are sectors within that group which have embraced or are doing well with a risk-based supervision, but there are sectors like legal sector, the real estate sector, which are not doing well. The other area was on prosecution of ML, that's money laundering, and terrorism financing, separate from the predicate offenses. And what they found out was that the country, yes, had done well in prosecuting terrorism, had done well in prosecuting the predicates, the corruption, forgeries, etc., the predicate generating crimes. But we had not done well in prosecuting ML as an offense and TF, that's terrorism financing, as an offense. The totality was we had done, the areas where we had done well as a country, but we did not have statistics. We did not have a good story to tell. That from disseminations done by FRC to the law enforcement agencies and eventually to prosecution and asset recovery, that consistency, that flow was missing, or that progression is what was missing. And that is what took us to grey listing. And lastly, in terms of the status, I am aware that as of today, we have addressed 10 items out of the 21 items in our action plan. So that means we still have 11 items in our action plan, and we have one more reporting cycle, that is in May. But I'm also aware that even for the items which we have not addressed, substantial work has been done. And we should be able to at least address maybe 5 to 6 other areas in the next reporting cycle. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Bamboni.
Thank you very much, Chair. First of all, let me congratulate you for being appointed to these posts. If you approved by Parliament. Yeah, up.
No, switch off your mic. And CPR to switch off yours. So our audio team, I think, check on the. Try again now.
Yeah, I know. Thank you very much, Chair. I have 3 questions. The first question is that in February 2024, Kenya was put in the grey list due to strategic deficiencies in combating money laundering and terrorist financing. As the Director General, if you are approved by the House, you play a central role in coordinating national efforts to address financial action task force action plans items. What specific action are you going to undertake in your first 100 years to make sure that Kenya exits from the grey list?
I think on Abomboni you mean 100 days, not 100 years.
100 days. Oh, it was 100 years. Sorry, Chair. 100 years, nobody will be around. I think you have got the question. 2, if confirmed in this position, how do you intend to ensure that our international obligations, such as compliance with the Financial Action Task Force standards, do not undermine our security and national security? The last one, Financial Action Task Force assessment evaluation not only the existence of laws regulations and institutional framework, but also the extent to which these measures produce measurable results under the Financial Action Task Force immediate outcomes, such as successful investigations, prosecution, conviction and assets recovery, and effective risk mitigation. How would you ensure Kenya demonstrates effectiveness beyond technical compliance? Thank you very much.
How about you, nominee?
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Let me start with the last question because it's related to the one I answered last. On effectiveness, demonstrating effectiveness. This is an area which requires, it's not easy. It's a difficult area to demonstrate effectiveness. It requires, statistics. You must have evidence. You must have statistics. This is an area where you cannot address reactively. It requires that you have been working on it, building statistics, documenting the results. So one of the things which I will do in order to address the efficiency outcomes, one is to have a team, whose work is just to work on or to follow up on statistics and ensure that the efforts that we are doing as a country are documented. The other one, again, this area requires coordination, very strong coordination, for you to demonstrate, for instance, that the financial intelligence from the center has been utilized all the way. So one of the ways would be to establish coordinating or coordinative frameworks between the relevant agencies or law enforcement agencies to develop case management systems to track progression of cases from disseminations to prosecution. But most importantly, this requires constant review of our AML, CFT, CPF regime. This requires constant capacity building of the various sectors, and this requires constant outreach, and building strong partnerships with the reporting sector, that is the industry, building strong partnerships with the regulatory bodies. Because it's, as you've rightly indicated, or as mentioned, this is the second time we are being grey listed. We will be due for another review in 2031, and they will be looking on effectiveness. So our journey has to begin from now. We will not wait until 2031 to demonstrate effectiveness. We will, in 2021, we will be demonstrating what we have achieved. In terms of the specific actions to, again, related to that, to exit from the grey list, if you look at the countries which have managed to exit from the grey list, we can borrow one or two things from what they have done. One is there has been very strong political commitment on the process. We have the political commitment, we just need to sustain it. Two is coordination. The countries which have exited the grey list have demonstrated very strong, very effective coordination of all the players involved in the removal efforts. So one of the ways, again, would be to, from the top, have a leadership or have a leadership forum, then from that leadership forum establish working groups dealing with specific issues. And then we just need to continue building capacity and resourcing the institutions which are charged or which are mandated to facilitate exit from this process. I will, within the 100 days, my goal will be to address at least 6 areas within the action list within the 100 days. I will seek to establish a technical committee between the FRC and the sectors which are not doing very well currently. Those are the designated non-financial businesses and professions. I will also seek to enhance the capacity of the center in the core areas to support these efforts, and essentially, specifically, the analysis, the analysis function of the center and the compliance. And within 3 months, it's something which we can do in terms of recruitment or secondments and procuring the necessary tools to enable us effectively discharge on that mandate. I've mentioned the case management, which will be very key. And then having the close collaboration between the leadership of the various agencies who are involved in this. If we do that, we should be able to exit the grey list in a timely manner. And then lastly, balancing between the international obligations and our national security interests. One, yes, we are signatory to several international instruments. The Constitution and Article 2.6 again recognizes international law as a source of law, and the conventions that we have signed. But overall, we will subject our engagements with external partners to the Constitution, the constitutionality of our actions, the national interest in it, whatever engagement or all the partnerships that we will enter into will be subjected to the national interest requirement. And then lastly, we have institutions whose mandate is to vet and to ensure compliance with the national security. So again, developing and having partnership with some of those institutions like the service to audit some of the engagements we have with the external partners. I think, Chair, I have sufficiently addressed those 3 areas.
And now you are you're a member of Parliament, the Honourable Bichibiago MP for Chesume.
Thank you, Chair, and I must also congratulate the nominee, and I can see he also has a lot of knowledge on it. However, I would like to dwell on the issue of coordination, especially in the interagency and national security. Effective outcomes depend not only on information sharing, but also on coordinated priorities, mutual trust, and clearly defined operational roles. The Financial Reporting Center operates within, of course, multi-agencies, AML, CFT, ecosystems that includes investigative, prosecutorial, and revenue authorities such as DCI, DPP, KRA, and EACC. How would you enhance coordination between the FRC and other law enforcement agencies? And my question number 2 also would be, noting that the Financial Reporting Center, FRC, supervises all reporting institutions for AML, CFT, CPF, compliance under the CAMLA 2009. Whereas the Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority, UFAA, manages unclaimed assets under the UFA Act 2011 by maintaining a database and trust fund to reunite with owners. In your view, what collaborative measures can be established by the 2 institutions to ensure beneficial outcome towards combating AML and CFT in Kenya? Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Kibicha. Over to you, nominee.
Thank you, Honourable Biego. And through the Chair, as I indicated earlier, AML space is an area with many stakeholders. It's an area which requires very strong coordination between the players. In my experience in working in almost similar spaces like the city, coordination becomes effective when there is buy-in and there is a drive from leadership. So where there is that leadership drive for coordination and for coordination and information sharing, it will happen and it will cascade down pretty easily to the other officers. So one of the things which I will do is to prioritize leadership engagements. That's the leaders of the various agencies to have a forum or to be meeting on regular basis. 2 is to establish collaboration frameworks. Maybe the multi-agency, a good example is a multi-agency framework where agencies meet on regular basis and they are able to prosecute these matters. I will also, or if approved by this committee, I will also seek to prioritize joint investigations, joint trainings by the different agencies in this space. That's one of the ways of enhancing collaboration. But also there are tools which can facilitate ease of collaboration. That's information sharing tools. I've mentioned case management system. Because at the core, it's about information sharing and sharing strategies. Lastly, and again, this is a requirement by the FATF for a country to establish mechanisms for national coordination. I think just to ensure that the bodies which are not currently within that space are brought. If there is need for MOUs, for instance, you can enter into MOUs. You can also develop SOPs, standing operating procedures, just to facilitate ease of coordination and to define roles of the various players within that space. In terms of unclaimed, the relationship between unclaimed assets, unclaimed assets, UAFA, Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority. It's not a reporting institution, or it does not have, it's not within the CFT, AML CFT framework, but it plays a very important role, and it's an area which the center should have an interest in. The role of the center is to assist in identification of proceeds of crime. On the other hand, the UAFA, the role of UAFA is to unite the unclaimed assets with the owners or with the estate of the owners. So I think one of the area would be to be sharing information on ownership, so that the unclaimed assets are not united or reunited with families of, say, criminal groups or terrorist groups. And a very good example would be when the center receives the lists, or when the center does designations either domestically. The list can be shared with the UEFA just to do screening, to ensure that the people who are listed or the people who are in that sanctioned list are also not beneficiaries or are not listed as beneficiaries, for purposes of ensuring that the proceeds do not end up being reunited with the criminals. Data sharing, the center has a very huge role in data management. So is UEFA. So I think one of the areas would be sharing strategies, expertise on data management, on how they are managing their data and how we are managing our data, and perhaps maybe even joint trainings on that area. I'm not sure whether I've left any.
That's okay. I'm satisfied.
You have addressed the matter.
Satisfied.
Yeah. Satisfactory.
Thank you.
CPA Ruto.
Thank you so much, Chair. Indeed, the witness has demonstrated more understanding on what we are looking at, and I should start by appreciating him and congratulating him for this opportunity. Chair, I want to put up some few things which I've been listening but probably has not touched on it. But before that, I want to troubleshoot something else. Witness, when I was going through his submission, the documents that he gave as an expert in tax, I know that part of tax obligation he has provided on all tax regimes is not active. All of them are cancelled except the income tax. But again, looking at the income, he has given two mainstream income, employment income and farm income. I just wanted to know from him, in this farm income he's receiving, I'm sure every revenue has a cost element in it, and one of it should be labor. Looking at the payee obligation, it is cancelled, it is inactive. So I wanted to know from him whether Does he employ some staff or personnel in his firm, and today earn qualifications of them to be subjected to pay as you earn? Probably, I think that's something I wanted to check, because you profound to be patriot, and patriotism includes payment of taxes. Now, on the issues before here, we are aware, and I'm sure the candidate is aware, that we are in a dynamic world. There are many new things that are emerging, and most of these also comes with risk associated with them. One of it is virtual asset and digital payment. We all appreciate that the world is moving, and the world is accepting now another form of payment through what we call virtual asset. And it is clear that this thing is still a new phenomenon, unknown, anonymous. How would you, in your position, establish what risk can be associated with this, and probably regulatory caps that would be there, and intervention to it? You could tell Kenyans whether you are aware of the risk around it and what can be done. Another issue, Chair, you appreciate that the Kenyan government has well established in our constitution prescription on rights to association, up to including not-for-profit organizations, where there are freedom of association, coming together, registration, civil participation. Of late, and it is noted that FATF has also recognized that these particular NGOs could be vulnerable to be abused, to channel money for terrorism, political instability, and all illegal described crimes. How would your office on this also establish the risk related to it, and probably regulations, or how do you push for proper regulations to cap on this one without interfering with the constitutional provision? Another issue, Chair, is the issue of trust and other complex legal arrangements. Of course, you understand that these are used to obscure beneficial ownership and facilitate illicit financial flows. The essence here is to strengthen transparency. Again, it's a question of steps that you would take, should you be considered, to strengthen the beneficial ownership transparency for trust and not being misused. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Nominee. But however, it's important to report to this committee that as early as this morning, we did write to the Kenya Revenue Authority, and the Commissioner General has written to us a letter dated 28th January 2026 on the nominee, and the letter is certified that the nominee is tax compliant. So for the sake of our clarity of documentation, that the nominee is tax compliant, and you have received that evidence from the authority, so the matter rests there. Proceed with the other questions.
Thank you, Chair. Let me address the issue of virtual assets. This is a new frontier for us as a country, and particularly for money laundering and terrorism financing. And it's one of the areas which was identified by the mutual evaluation team when they came for the mutual evaluation, that the country was deficient in that space. But the good news is that we now have a legislation on virtual asset service providers, which is currently now being operationalized in terms of the regulations being put in place. The vulnerabilities associated with the virtual assets stem from the fact that, one, the operation, there are certain features which predispose virtual assets, cryptocurrencies, to abuse by terrorists and criminals. And the first one, of course, is the anonymity aspect, that most of these assets or most of these facilities are anonymous, so you are not able to identify who the owner of the wallet is. The other one is the speed with which you can transact. Just the click of a button, and you have moved your assets, or you have moved the virtual asset. The other area of vulnerability is cross-border and portability nature. That you can have a service being offered here in Kenya, and that transaction being concluded in another jurisdiction, again within a very short time. And particularly concern would be in those countries which do not have very strong AML CFT regulations. The other area of vulnerability is, unlike the fiat coins, or unlike the normal currency which operates regulated within a defined financial space, virtual assets actually operate within an undefined space. And especially the ones which are very risky are the ones we refer to as peer-to-peer, the P2P exchanges, and the ones with enhanced anonymity features. So these are the vulnerabilities, these are the attributes the criminals, the terrorists look to exploit. And indeed there are cases, there are ongoing cases on this area, cases where we have Kenyans who have been prosecuted for using cryptocurrencies for purposes of moving funds or facilitating the movement of funds for terrorists. So this is an area which is new. Not everyone understands. It's a technical area. So one of the areas of ensuring that this area is properly regulated now that the law is in place is to build capacity of the law enforcement agencies, the regulatory agencies. This is an area which requires expertise. So as a center, I think this is one of the areas where we'll be looking at recruiting maybe experts in this area and procuring the necessary technology for surveilling, for investigating, or for following up on the movement of funds. Blockchain would be, or the chain analysis would be a good area to look at. The other way of ensuring that this area is properly regulated is sensitization of the public. A lot of public sensitization, because again this is an area where criminals could easily carry out those the Ponzi type schemes and the illegal coin offerings, etc. And we have seen this happening in other countries. Then lastly is because of the cross-border nature of the vulnerabilities associated with the virtual assets, is to develop partnerships with neighbors, with other international partners, especially those who have done very well in this space. The trust area again is also another complex area, and it's a requirement. It's a requirement by FATF that beneficial ownership requirements touching on trust are made transparent. So we've done. I think the first step which has been done is on companies and LLPs. That now there is beneficial ownership information requirement. Trusts. There is a trust administration bill which is coming up, and I think that will be able now to address the complexity of trust and the vulnerability of trust arrangements, particularly on beneficial ownership information, because this is an area where again criminals and terrorists could easily conceal their identity, could conceal funds and move funds. So beyond the law, which is required, that's now the technical compliance aspect. The efficiency, the effectiveness part will be very key, and a lot of sensitization on the stakeholders on this area will be required. We need to engage, I think, proactively with Parliament. We need to proactively engage the relevant stakeholders, particularly the Law Society of Kenya and the TCSPs, the Trust Company Service Providers, basically the company secretaries on this area, because they play a big role. I think, Chair, that is what I would recommend for this area. But and perhaps again, this is an area which will require on beneficial ownership is development of compliance tools, online compliance tools, which we are able to identify whenever there is movement in beneficial ownership, and that will require partnership between the center and the BRS or the AG's office. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Njeri. And then Dr. Mucho last, and then as the CPA, Dr. Ariko closes.
Thank you so much, Chair. Allow me to begin by congratulating the nominee, Mr. Naftali Kipchirchir Rono. Congratulations, even being nominated is a privilege in itself. Owing to the fact that designated financial businesses and profession remain at a high risk and vulnerable to money laundering due to the handling of high value transactions, what reforms would you propose to improve anti-money laundering and counterfeit compliance among the designated financial business and professions? Question number 2. How would you leverage technology and data analytics to detect complex financial crimes networks, and what safeguards would you put in place to protect data security and privacy?
Thank you. Our chair nominee.
Thank you, Mheshimiwa. And through the chair, the DNFPP area is an area of concern, even in our action plan. And as I indicated earlier, the deficiency which was noted was low level of appreciation of risk-based supervision of this sector. The center has done a lot in building the capacity of the various supervisors in this space. For instance, the Law Society of Kenya, the Estate Agents Registration Board, the ISPAC, ICS, and even the State Department of Mining. The challenge with the DNFPPs, one is the capacity of the supervisors themselves. The law, yes, provides that the center is a super regulator, is the overall regulator, but the law also has recognized that the supervisors in that sector regulate or supervise the licensees. But as we speak, the supervisors in that sector do not have that capacity. So one of the ways is just to build capacity of the supervisors. That is in terms of the resources, financial resources, technical capacity, and even the human resource capacity. In terms of legislative or legal reforms, as I indicated earlier, the two areas, or the one area which might require intervention or will require intervention from this house, is the real estate agencies in terms of updating the legislation. The DPMS, currently they are regulated by the State Department of Mining, but one of the legislative proposals which we could consider, or which this house could consider, is maybe to create a regulatory body. Because if you look at all the other bodies or the other sectors, they have a regulatory body. If it's the casinos, they have the GRA, the Gambling Regulatory Authority. So perhaps for mining, maybe that's something to ponder. Beyond legislation, I think leadership will be very key in this area. That's the leadership of the center and the leadership of the various sectors in engaging them and for them to see the need of complying, especially maybe the legal fraternity, on the need to see the importance of complying with AML. And the need for them to see the need for the country to exit, while balancing that, of course, with the other concerns like client confidentiality and the legal privilege. On leveraging technology, most financial intelligence units grapple with two challenges. One is the evolution of crime, the evolution of the crime itself, sophistication, and then two, data overload. Because of the sheer volume of data that they handle. So the most financial institutions and those who have done well and those whom we can benchmark with, if you look at what they have done, is to adopt advanced analytics. For instance, use of AI in identifying anomalous or most complex transactions, use of even machine learning, again, just for early detection and prioritization of STRs, the suspicious transaction reports. Blockchain technology or chain analysis, again, for detecting or for investigating virtual assets. So beyond the analytical tools, again, FIUs or Financial Reporting Center requires very, very robust IT or ICT systems in terms of data storage, data security, and even data sharing. So again, we'll leverage technology to ensure that we have robust but secure systems for sharing information, for storage of information, and also for compliance. Other countries, they have already adopted online compliance tools, and that will obviate perhaps the need for on-site compliance visits. So it's an area which requires resources, and I think if approved by this committee, it will be one of the areas I would want to have deeper engagement with. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Dr. Mwiti?
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Lono, let me take this opportunity to congratulate you for having been nominated for this post. Mr. Lono, you are very much aware really what it entails in your duty if approved. However, there are issues I would like you to take us through, especially if you are approved. One, Mr. Lono, you are very much aware that information sharing is central to effective financial intelligence. Secondly, Mr. Lono, you are very much aware that interagency is often constrained by legal restrictions. There are a lot of restrictions that bite in this particular institution. You are also aware very much that the data protection concerns are a key in this institution. Capacity gaps are enormous, and the differing operational mandates may lead to differing decision making. Mr. Lono, if approved, and I'm confident, due to your presentation, you know exactly what is expected. Can you briefly mention some challenges that might arise in intelligence sharing and how you'd address or mitigate them? Secondly, Mr. Lono, you are very much aware that FRC is an institution that is very critical in transactions. In several cases, and having been an entrepreneur before, I'm very conversant of transactions where entrepreneurs have had their accounts frozen due to hasty presentations or decisions. Can you tell us how you'd protect entrepreneurs or interbank transfer transactions that may not have necessarily a harassment by freezing the accounts, by suspected money laundering? And this has made it very difficult for entrepreneurs in Kenya to transfer cash from one bank to another because of suspicion that this is money that has been obtained through laundering. Thank you.
Over to you, nominee.
Thank you, Mheshimiwa. Let me address the first concern on information or intelligence sharing. Again, this is an area, the AML CFT space is an area where information sharing is unavoidable. And it also forms part of the international expectations that there are mechanisms in place to facilitate information sharing between the local or domestic players, but also the external players, that's other financial intelligence units or other competent authorities. So the challenge with information sharing, I think, mainly arises, one, because of there are laws which, of course, can limit information sharing. But what the FATF standards have done, and even the Act has done, is to put in place mechanisms to ensure that the legislations or information sharing is subject to, for instance, the data protection laws. So what we have is actually, we've domesticated what I would say addresses first the need to share, but also the need to protect unauthorized or unnecessary disclosure. The best approach of dealing with information sharing, as I said, is a leadership. It's a leadership question. If there is consensus at the leadership level, and that information sharing is facilitated, I mean, my experience, the junior officers will not have a problem with information sharing. But again, this can be structured, this can be formalized in forms of entering into MOUs, in form of entering into information sharing protocols, so that it's structured and it's not left maybe to an individual officer to decide what to share and how to share. This is an area where we can also explore development of information sharing mechanisms, tools, secure information sharing protocols, and also creating forums, opportunities where agencies can share that information face to face, like having regular forums between the FRC and the law enforcement agencies, or between the FRC and the reporting sector. Creating forums, for instance, for money laundering officers from the banks and the staff of the center, where they can exchange information. But for us to address some of those concerns, I think we have to develop also a culture of integrity and a culture of confidentiality, and a culture of protecting or using the information shared for the purpose for which it was intended. It's more of an organizational culture, inculcating a culture that fosters sharing of information, and a culture that fosters confidence and trust building, because it's also about trust building. In terms of the challenges the traders face in transacting, I want to believe the area you're focusing on, or you want me to respond to, is on the requirement for declaration, cash declaration, and the requirement for provision of supporting documentation. Under the FATF standards, and even our own laws, Section 44 of the POCAMLA Act, it's a requirement that financial institutions monitor on an ongoing basis all complex, unusual, and even small patterns, even small, insignificant transactions which do not have any economic value. So the main thing there is whether it's not so much about the amount involved, but whether it is derived, or whether there is an economic value, or there is an economic explanation to it, and whether it arises suspicion that these are proceeds of crime, or that these are proceeds intended for commission of a crime. So the banks are obligated by law first to report all suspicious transactions, irrespective of the amount involved. Even 50 shillings could be suspicious depending on how it's done or how it's moved. And terrorists have demonstrated that they can actually move small figures over time. Additionally, banks are required under the current regime to report all cash transactions exceeding 15,000 USD. That's approximately 2 million Kenya shillings. That's withdrawals and deposits, irrespective of whether there is suspicion or not. And it's also a requirement, it's a practice, it's international best practice that all cash transactions exceeding a certain threshold are reported. Now the threshold is set by the country itself. The FATF leaves that to the country to establish that threshold. And that threshold is established by way of risk assessment, doing a risk assessment of the risk profiling of the country. I am aware that Kenya is largely cash-based. The informal economy supports or contributes substantially to our economy. And there are many traders, many hardware shops, petrol stations who trade in or who operate in cash transactions. So for those transactions, the law currently, as it is there must be reporting. But however, maybe what the center and the regulator, the CBK, could do so that there is uniform application of this requirement across all banks is maybe to issue guidelines, regular guidelines, perhaps maybe even on what documentation would suffice to approve a transaction. A lot of sensitization, of course, will be required on the members of the public to also appreciate the concerns and the need for compliance with this requirement. It is a little inconvenience, but what it does in the long term, actually in terms of security and ensuring the financial stability and the financial integrity of our system, I think it has more good. That amount is not cast on stone. It's something which can be revised, but upon doing a risk assessment. So maybe as a country, what we could do is regular risk assessments to inform our mitigating measures.
Maybe just to give you feedback, that law does not seem to be followed. The 15,000 USD or 2 million shillings limit. The threshold they use is still the old law for 1 million shillings. Sure. And maybe if this Honorable House approves you, I think that's one of the lines that are really lagging behind. And remember, and now with the increased aggressiveness of Kenya Revenue Authority to meeting its targets and using intelligence to find out missing traders and those Kenyans who are not necessarily paying their rightful share of tax, then these two could really take us back to a cash economy where most of these transactions just being done. I agree, this is how much I'm supposed to pay, just bring you the money, and then I think that is really a space. And as much as we want to honor our international obligations, it's a space that we need to manage correctly, and especially, as you rightfully said, considering that most of our economy is cash-based. Most people will go to a hardware to buy cement. If you buy 100 bags of cement, another one buys 100 of cement, it easily gets to more than that amount. Madam Mbon, you want to contribute?
Yeah, I just want to say that I just want to say what you have said, because some banks have stuck to 1 million. Some banks have stuck to 1 million. If you go to a bank like Barclays, they are at 1.5 million. So I think we need uniformity so that at least, because you see, we are talking about financial deepening, right? Mm-hmm. So there's so much money in the houses, which is not helping this economy. So that is one thing which we need to go and look into, so that at least because you see, initially we were being told it's an international standard, but I don't think it's actually international standard. As you are saying, it's a country specific. Kenya being a cash economy, I think we can even move to 2 million shillings or 3 million shillings, so that at least we can tap this money to the economy. Thank you. Actually,
the law talks about $15,000, which is approximately 2 million shillings. And it's absent nowadays. It starts being backless.
Yes. I'm still stuck.
Chair, I know you want to make your final remarks, Chair. Then let us let him go.
Anna Bariko, your turn.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I want to introduce myself, Dr. Rico John Omoit, Member of Parliament for Turkana South. Chair, I told you yesterday that I was going to bury the victims of banditry in Turkana South constituency, Arrow sub-county. I've buried 2, but I have managed to be in Nairobi
to attend this vetting. First of all, I want to congratulate Kipchirchir Rono and also appreciate the President for nominating Rono to this position. Chair, the candidate has responded to many questions when he was trying to respond to the questions raised by members. In particular, there was a question that in 2025, some 4 countries came out of Financial Action Task Force grey listing and international obligations. And I wanted to ask, what can we learn from these countries that came out of this problem? But that question was responded. Chair, Mr. Rono is coming out of Nice, probably on secondment, I don't know, because I've seen is permanent and pensionable deputy director in Nice. And again, is now going to a very risky institution of financial reporting center, which I believe it has the same risk as Nice. So I was trying to ask myself, what has motivated Rono to move from Nice to Financial Reporting Center? Secondly, Chair, the experience of Mr. Rono in NIS. I want to ask Rono that what kind of contribution or value is he going to add to Financial Reporting Center, given his experience in NIS and academic and professional qualification stature of Mr. Rono? Thank you, Chair.
Yes, you may respond to those queries, Mr. Rono.
Thank you, Honorable Ariko, and my condolences. Through the chair, yes, I'm excited to join the Financial Reporting Center because it will offer me an opportunity at that higher level than where I am currently to orchestrate what I believe as impactful change that will transform the center into a premier financial intelligence unit. And from that space, from that high space, be able to contribute to crime prevention, promotion of the financial integrity of our country, and economic development and attainment of national security priorities. So I am excited because, as I indicated earlier on, my career journey, my experience deeply aligns with the mandate of FRC. I have been in collection, I have been in analysis, I have dealt with dissemination, I have coordinated counterterrorism operations, I have coordinated anti-money laundering operations, and now this is an opportunity to lead those efforts at a strategic level as the CEO, which is slightly higher than where I am currently. But as I said earlier on, beyond just this being a leadership position, for me it's national duty. I have spent virtually all my life in public service. It's national duty. It's high patriotic calling to contribute to the development of this country. In terms of the value add that I bring on, again with the competencies and the experience that I have gained in the institutions that I have worked in, I have strong strategic outlook capabilities. That's a strategic vision. I have strong capabilities in building teams. I have built teams wherever I've been, especially in the operational spaces I've operated in. I have built very strong teams who have gone on to deliver on their mandate. I strongly believe in in information sharing, in collaboration. And again, I've operated, I've dealt with many stakeholders. And coming to FRC, I think I'll be able to utilize my negotiation, communication skills, and ability to navigate government and even spaces outside government.
Yes, Dr.
Chair, these institutions NIS, NIS, and financial repository centers are institutions that are meant to curb these criminal activities. But from the outlook, the criminals or the underworld figures that are involved in these transactions or in these activities are within government. What do you say about that?
I'm not sure whether that is factual, but maybe to rephrase it, what if these people are political figures or people within government? How would you deal with that situation?
Thank you, Chair. I actually intended to answer it that way, that that the law gives the center the operational autonomy, the independence to make decisions. So if that arises, or if a dissemination touching on whoever inside or outside government was to come to the center, I think we will process it within the law, and as the CEO, I will have the final call, the decision to make, and we will be motivated, or we will be guided by nothing but the law, which requires us to disseminate suspicious, to process the suspicious transactions from the bank, and where we feel, where we have reasonable, or where we have grounds to believe that this indeed amounts to or touches on illicit flows, the law requires us to share that information with law enforcement agencies and supervisory bodies. There are other powers which the Act has given the center, and the center again will follow the law in exercising those powers, including a freezing of the accounts. I thank you, Chair.
Honorable, you have a follow-up question?
Yeah, Chair, let me say that I'm impressed by his questions, his answers. They are very good answers. And of course, we have learned a lot from those answers. But I was just asking myself, this financial reporting center, should it be, since it was established, it has been headed by officers from NIS. Is it somewhere written that it should be headed by officers from NIS?
Okay, maybe nominee, you may respond, but
no, you may not respond. You may, because
Honorable Mboni, this is the Financial Reporting Center. This is one of the entities that will only act on intelligence, and therefore I would think it would be very important that the person from the highest level has experience in handling matters of national intelligence, because that's what they operate on. So I think I respond.
No, but Chair, I tend to think there's also a department in the CBK, which is also handling those kind of matters, right? Yes.
Yeah.
But it's not neither here or there. But because to me, what I said, I think personally I like his answers. Yeah.
All these are regulators, and they operate around the same space, and so you'll expect a lot of information sharing. If you are to freeze someone's account, then FRC cannot be the one doing the actual freezing. That has to be coordinated with the central bank. So there must be a lot of coordination on all these regulators. Lastly, Honorable Karema.
Yeah, Chair, now that we come to the tail end, nominee, if you are successful, I've been involved in the area of transnational crimes for a very long time. Chair, just a short while back, I think I was in a training in Ethiopia. I've been trained in the UK around these issues. And the challenges coming up, which you have identified, are largely around prosecution, effective and delayed prosecution, and the length of time these matters take to be adjudicated before the courts. Mine would be to ask that if you are successful and you are approved and later on appointed, you get back to this committee so that we can see what interventions between your office and Parliament we can have around Article 157, Sub-Article 11 of the Constitution, and maybe also, Chair, to check whether the time has come for the judiciary to now establish a division which is dealing with, this kind of transnational crimes proper. The situation we have, Chair, which is partly the reason as to why we are grey listed, is that these matters are still tried by the subordinate courts. Magistrates who are not, may not be specifically trained in the area. When you go to the UK, all these matters are before a High Court judge, and a judge has only a single matter to deal with. Until that file is complete, they cannot handle any other back-to-back, kind of system. So I was thinking that if you are successful, please don't turn your back on Parliament. Get back to Parliament, get back to this committee, so that we can, share around those areas to make the work of the Financial Reporting Center more beneficial to the state. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Kaluma. So thank you for appearing before this committee for this your vetting exercise. Confirm that you have back your original identification card and your original certificates. So Sergeant at Arms facilitate the nominee with the original ID and the original the original certificates. You may now make your closing remarks.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Maybe before I make my closing remarks, let me just clarify that the first Director General of the Center was actually Jackson Kitile, who was from CBK. That was the first Director General. Honorable Chair and honorable members.
But how many have there been? That was the first one. And then Saitoti was the second one?
So I'm the third.
So you're third. So yes. Still 2 out of 3 from the National Intelligence Service. But anyway, proceed. Yeah.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson and honorable members. Thank you for granting me this opportunity to appear before you this morning. And I just want to affirm that should I be approved by this committee, I will uphold the national values and the principles of governance, as well as the constitutional obligation for oversight by this committee. I also affirm and confirm that I will be available to engage with this committee, and particularly on the pending issues in our action plan. And beyond the action plan, as a country, we need to develop a robust and resilient AML-CFT system, and that requires investment over time. It requires constant improvement. It requires constant engagement with all the stakeholders, and you as one of the key stakeholders, I affirm that I will be proactive in engaging with yourselves. Once again, I thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
So thank you very much. Again, we want to congratulate you for your nomination so far. I want to thank the honorable members for conducting the vetting exercise with the highest level of professional decorum, and for you for doing your best to respond to those matters asked professionally. If this committee and the House approves of your appointment, I think there are gray areas that really need to be handled. We congratulate the National Treasury on all this space, on our gray listing, on our lifting, and most recently was on our Moody's rating, on the improvement on our credit rating, which is very, very phenomenal, because that is what this honorable house has really worked on, those policies, and given you the policies you require on that particular space. So, but on this anti-money laundering and counter-finance terrorism and purification of funds matter, the 10 points, the 11th point that you've not achieved, please engage this parliament as soon as possible so that we make sure that it's addressed, so that we're safe in that particular matter. I think it's important that Kenyans know how this is essential. With that listing, it becomes our flows when you want to send money to a different country. There is much more scrutiny, and therefore makes it expensive to do business. That makes it expensive in terms of time to complete this particular transaction. So it's very important that we get these 11 points in order so that we are in good rating. You've seen Kenyans' concerns about matters of data privacy. I think in as much as you carry out your roles as a regulatory authorities, it's very important that you observe matters of data privacy. The new space that this honorable house approved, Kenya became the first country in Africa to have a standalone legislative framework on virtual assets, because all the other countries have just an amendment in either their Capital Markets Act or in their Central Bank Act, but we have a single regulatory framework, or a standalone regulatory framework on virtual assets. Again, this is a space that we need to have a lot of training and investment to all the regulators, so that again it doesn't become a risk in terms of all this illicit flow. So we thank you, we congratulate you for the steps so far, and we hope that this committee and the Honorable House does approve of you to be the next Director General for Financial Reporting Center. We thank you, and you can take leave at your own pleasure. So, honourable members, we have one more small agenda for another session, so please don't leave so that we complete this matter. Thank you and all the best.
And national security tomorrow. Proceed, David.